Hello and welcome to yet another Taste Talk. We are so excited to have Monique Costello back with us again. And I love this topic that we're doing today. It is about seasonal eating for health, and we are focusing on spring. It is a fabulous time to be shopping. Farmers markets are coming back. Green City Market just opened up last weekend, back outside. So it is time to start purchasing all the produce and making the best use of it. So Monique, please take it away and give us some recommendations and some ideas.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm so excited about spring. I just heard that the Green City Market opened up on Saturday, and I really wanted to go, and I couldn't make it, but I'm going this weekend. I plan to go and get a bunch of radishes for today. So spring eating, seasonal eating is a very important topic when it comes to our health. It's something that I think, honestly, because that we can walk into a grocery store now and really get any vegetable anytime, mostly any vegetable, mostly any time of the year. We've kind of forgotten about the foods that technically grow in our areas and those things that are available to us just during those times of the years. Because the truth is that Earth gives us what we need in each season to survive. And so when we think about spring, we'll come back and talk a lot about this through our time together. We think about a lot of like leafy greens, and it's a time when things are just beginning to sprout, and we need foods that are bitter and astringent to help us like release some of that heaviness of the winter. And that's really where the spring foods come in. Summer is filled with nature's bounty of all the sweeter vegetables and all the sweeter fruits. And that's really the time of year where we are to eat those. And then comes sort of this fall winter where we're going inward a little bit, things that are a little more grounding, a little more hardy. We are meant to actually put on a couple of pounds in the winter, really to keep us warm, especially if you're up in the north region, right? But now then we go back to spring, and it turns the cycle over again. So today I'm working with a couple different ingredients. I'm going with some leeks. I'm going to use a fennel, and then we're going to make a little vegan almond cookie that has strawberries in it, because berries are big this time of year too. I'll keep talking about the seasonality of things as I just start to get things going over here. I'm going to take the ends of my leeks off. I'm going to get a fry pan over here just going too. Now, the one thing we need to know about leeks, I love them because they're so great for your digestion. They really help to move things along in your digestion, but they are the dirtiest of the vegetables out there. And so what I'm going to do, there's a couple different ways you can clean your leeks. I'm going to cut this just in half the long way so that I can take it apart and show you. Typically, when you think about a leek, and you pull a leek apart, these little areas are going to be the areas where you usually find a lot of little dirt kind of hiding in here. So you've got to, if you're going to slice them the long way, what we need to do is we need to get in here and just clean off any dirt. These ones really aren't bad. I've seen them where there's just buckets of sand in these things, right? So you just need to pull them apart and just make sure you're cleaning in between each one of those, because otherwise you'll just get sand and dirt in there. I think about this too, like I feel like some of the spring vegetables tend to be the dirtiest vegetables, like radishes. Every time I pick up the radishes, the radish leaves are always just filled with sand. Do you guys experience that too?
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you just have to rinse them off. Now, the second way you can do this with your leeks is you can just get in here and let's just start cutting them down into circles. They're rolling. Mine are rolling today. And then we're going to pop them into, all right, get just the ends of the greens here. And we're going to pop it into a bucket of water. So I have a bucket of water ready for you just to show you kind of how a couple different ways to clean your leeks depending on what you're doing with them. And you swish them around, and what's going to happen is all that dirt that's in them is just going to drop to the bottom there. And then your leeks are going to stay at the top, but dirt's going to go to the bottom. I probably could have put a little bit more water in here to help that. But again, these weren't too dirty. Now, with the leeks too, what do you guys like to do? Do you guys like to use the greens, the dark greens of your leeks, or do you guys only use the whites? I'm curious.
Oh, you use the whole thing.
I use the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? How about Roy? What about Roy's?
Oh, yes.
Roy,
That's,
what do you use?
like to use the whole thing. Waste not, want not.
Mhm.
Right? Absolutely. Nose to tail cooking, right?
Yeah,
And I'm
nose
just going to
to
give you,
tail or root to
or root to
leaf
stalk.
tip.
Yeah, root to beet tip. I love it. There we go. And you can see there's just a little bit of that dirt just hanging out at the bottom here. So two different ways to clean this, whichever one like feeds your fancy, right? I love to use the dark green parts too. Now keep in mind, those dark outer greens are going to be a little bit more, a little bit more fibrous. So I think that's where a lot of people don't always like to use all of that. You'll see a lot of recipes too will call only for the white parts. And for two reasons. One, I think some people don't like that fibrous, but for another reason is why you might be making maybe a leek soup and you don't want it to be overly green. You want it to be a nicer white. In those cases, you could just remove a few of those darker greens. Now I'm dropping in both a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of ghee. Ghee is clarified butter. Any fans of clarified butter out there? I am. One of my favorite things ever. I love it because it's got those milk solids removed from it and you don't have that saltiness and you just have that pure butter. It really helps with that high heat. I'm going to add in my leeks. I gave them just a little bit of a dry because obviously they were in the water, so you're going to get a little splatter. So I did put them on a towel. Now I want to softly saute these. I've got this just a little high, so I'm going to turn it down while I cut my second leeks in here. And the second leek and get it in here. This creamy leek, what we're working on today, what we're focusing on is doing something that's a creamy leek, but a dairy-free leek. Now, one of the reasons I want to do that, especially in the spring, is that when you think about we think about these natural spring foods, right? Spring is really just sort of naturally dairy-free and naturally gluten-free. Now, doesn't mean you have to be entirely dairy-free or gluten-free, right? It just means that if you think about it, like the wheat is not ready for harvest in the spring, right? Most animals are not ready for that milky substance in the spring. So we think about these as kind of those leafy greens, the little sprouts that are coming up, the bitter astringent things like a burdock root. I was looking for that at the store today too, and I didn't find any. Are you guys familiar with burdock root?
No.
This is actually a root that grows here in the Midwest. And when you see it in the store, it actually looks like a stick. You'll be like, why is there a stick in the produce section? So I love working with it because a lot of people have never seen it before. And you can kind of rinse off the outside or you can peel it, but it does really resemble a stick. If you peel it or cut it, you've got to get in water real quick. It's white on the inside and it'll just turn that rusty oxidized color real quick. You could stir fry it. It has kind of a crunchy texture to it. So think about like a stir fry vegetable use for it. But it's a powerful blood cleanser. And I really like it because it's grown in the Midwest. And these are one of those things, like if I can find ingredients that are in the Midwest that are really, growing in our area, that there again, I think Earth is telling us these are the foods you should be eating at this time, right? So if you think about coming off winter and that heavy winter like weight, this is a great use to sort of clean that liver, clean that blood, like give us a little bit of lightness and energy for the summer, pre-summer. Okay, I've got myself a nice looking fennel too. Do you guys use the fronds?
I've not worked with the fennel myself, but that doesn't mean they're not in my home. My husband usually does things with fennel, so I can't remember. It's been a while since there's been a fennel around.
Okay, got it. I do like, it's a love or a hate. I think people love or hate it because it's that black licorice, right? So you're going to get that anisey sort of essence here. Oops. I'm going to find a nice happy medium on my heater over here. So you're going to get a little bit of that black licorice, like, I'm just getting such a wonderful aroma. It's not, it's not as heavy, it's not as sweet as a classic black licorice, but it's that essence. You can soften it a little bit by adding it into and sauteing this down. just cutting these down lightly. These are going to go in here. Now, again, when I talk about this sort of looking for these bitter, bitter astringent tastes that happened in the spring, this is another one that I think about for that sort of flavor. And we tend to have, in America, we tend to have a real sweet palate these days. But if we think about this bitter is a flavor that can help to keep us alive, right? If you think about how bitter, like if you have to be worried about bitter foods, is this a bitter food that might be sort of poisonous? So it keeps you alert to that. But again, also bitter really supports things like, it supports like your bile acid, and it supports that detoxification in the body. So these kinds of foods are important for this type of year for those reasons. So we're adding in some fennel. I'm going to bring this back up. I'm having a little, hang on one second. I'm just going to make sure I'm totally plugged in. If I have to, I'll move myself back to the stove, but I seem to be a little up and down. My heating element is quite old, so there's a good chance that we're running on the last legs of it.
No.
It's not time. I do notice that there's so many nicer ones out too. Mine's been around for so long. Okay, now we've got a little bit back to our ghee. I started talking about ghee. I've also got a little olive oil in there. So I did a mixture. I like to mix the olive oil and the ghee and just a little drizzle of that olive oil just to give it a little bit of that lovely creaminess that comes with olive oil. And now I'm just going to let these guys simmer for a few minutes, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Because we're in this together today, and I don't want us to wait too long, I'm going to cover it just so it softens it. Give it a toss a couple times. Let's also, before I forget that, let's also add a few pinches of salt in there. Just to start to layer that salty flavor, bring out the natural essence here, start to break down those vegetables as well. Now, what we're going to do with that is we're going to let that simmer, let it get its little sauteing on, get it all nice and soft and lovely. And then we're going to make a creamy sauce to go over the top, and we're going to use cashews. Before we do that, what I want to do is I want to get a little bit of a cookie in the oven. So we're going to do an almond cookie. Now, I tend to make cookies that I call them part of my freezer collection. So I make a lot of cookies, and I just make this up, right? I make a lot of cookies that don't have eggs or dairy in them. Now, that's not to say that I don't ever eat dairy, and it's not to say I don't ever eat eggs. I actually love eggs. But I think once in a while, again, it's kind of nice to be able to just make things a little bit lighter and simpler, and just have these nice little nods of sweetness without being overwhelmed by a bunch of other ingredients in it. And I also like to think about, even when we talk about this kind of bitter astringent foods, even the almond flour in there, you can even think of that almond flour as even having a little bit of that bitter sort of flavor to it. The longer you chew it, though, I do think it becomes more, it's going to become more creamy, right? And that kind of goes to this idea of the more you chew your food, right, the more that salivary amylase gets to break down that food, and the more all of that is just going to become a little more liquidy in the mouth.
I just have a question on the fennel too. So is simmering the fennel, will it turn translucent like onions do, or will it hold that white opacity?
It's going to still have some of that opacity. It's not going to be as translucent as like an onion gets. Yeah, but good question. You can also take the fennel, like if you've never worked with fennel before either, I love to just take it and halve it or quarter it depending on the size. This was a rather large one. And a little olive oil, a little salt and pepper, roast it, right? Just right on the pan like you would with other vegetables. And just give it a nice roasting. And that's just a beautiful, and then you just cut off chunks of it too. So fennel, you can go a lot of different ways. You can also give everything a toss here. You can also, you just shave it raw and eat it raw and put it in raw salads. It's a nice, like in place of maybe say like a celery, if you're used to doing like a celery for crunch or a jicama. So this is a really nice, again, spring flavor that comes together. Cool. Okay, those are going. I'm gonna again turn up my heat. I really want this just to kind of softly saute together. I'm not looking to real caramelize and brown it, but I'm gonna turn mine up a little bit higher just because it feels like we're not very hot there. Okay, over here, we're just gonna make a little baby cookie. And I've got a little almond flour. So this is just the ground almond flour in here. You could make this at home, right? You can just throw almonds in your blender and just grind it down and just blend it down. Be careful it doesn't go too long because it'll turn into almond butter. Yeah, which is lovely, which is not a bad thing. It just might not be what you're looking for. Right? Okay, so I've got about a half a cup of the almond flour. I put just a pinch of that salt in there and just a pinch of some baking soda in here as well too. That salt, I tend to use the pink Himalayan salt. I don't know, what does everybody else like to use?
I definitely have that in kosher. Roy, what do you?
I've got the pink Himalayan salt here also, and I use kosher. I haven't tried sea salt. I think it might be a little bit too chunky. I tend away from that, but I think the pink salt and the kosher work well. I like it.
Yeah, I agree. The pink salt is my go-to for everyday, all kinds of things. The sea salt, but I definitely have a couple of different kinds of sea salt and different flaked salt, right? Of course, the Maldon salt for the top and a few of the black Hawaiian salts, just for that decoration on top and that little crunch that those give you, which I think is lovely. But what I like about the pink salt now it's all like, all salts are going to be that sodium chloride. So you're still getting that in all of your salts. What I do like about the pink salt and what I think is different about the pink salt is that it has 86 trace minerals, and these are the minerals our body uses. Now, they are small, they are trace minerals. There's not a lot in there, but it is a nice salt to know that the body can recognize it, right? It doesn't get confused by it. And that can happen when we take a salt that's then maybe really refined or like some chemicals used to turn it white or anything like that. And I like to think that pink salt was in the earth or was in the sea millions of years ago before the sea was polluted, right? So also really lovely. All right, I'm gonna add in, I'm also thinking about my spring foods, and for me, walnuts come to mind over something like a pecan. Like the pecans just feel like that fall food. They go with those sweet potatoes and they go with the pumpkins, whereas the walnut feels like it really sits and complements something like the berries and the strawberries. So I'm gonna take a little handful of my walnuts and I'm just chopping them down a little bit, because these are gonna be tiny little cookies, little bite-sized cookies. I like to make, anytime you're working like gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, baking, anything like that, it just bakes up a little bit differently. And one of the things that I've 100% absolutely found is that the more you can make them smaller, the more you can make your items smaller, the more control you're going to have and the better baking is going to happen with them. So, and I call them my freezer cookies because after I cook them, I put them in the freezer and then I just pop them out of the freezer all the time, and they taste amazing out of the freezer. So I really like them. So I have a little bit of melted coconut oil. So I've got probably about 2 tablespoons maybe of melted coconut oil. I'm going to put that in. I set this in a bowl and I just set it on my oven while my oven was heating up, because I have the oven heating up, and I've got the oven about 375. Now this is just a maple syrup. So I'm just doing I did about a tablespoon there. Now, everybody has a different, and a little splash of vanilla. Everybody has a different palate. And I think this is the important thing. Work towards your palate. I've been working at reducing my sweet levels for a number of years. And so it doesn't just happen overnight. So just work towards it. If you need an extra splash of that maple syrup, add it, right? And then maybe next time, see if you can go just a little less and a little less. Okay, that's it. I probably had just a smidge too much of my maple syrup in there, or of my coconut oil in there. But here's the other great thing about this kind of cookie. You can eat the dough. And that's always one thing that I really like. You don't have to worry about the eggs. I'm gonna add just a smidge more of my almond flour. just to balance this out. There we go. So I make these kinds of cookies almost on a weekly basis, kind of using just different nuts and different seeds and different things that I have around the house, using almond flour or
gluten-free flour. I was
going
to ask about different nuts besides like walnuts. Like, could you do hazelnuts instead?
Yeah,
like
absolutely. The hazelnuts, you can, anything you want to chop up in there. Hazelnuts, macadamia nuts are actually a really great nut for you in terms of good fats, right? Like the fat doesn't make us fat. The right kind of fat really helps the body. Oh, these are starting to come down nicely. So I love doing those. I also love to use things like seeds. Like we tend to focus a little bit too much on nuts sometimes, and nuts really are, they are heavy on the fat, and I don't think we have to worry about them so much, except that nuts can be hard on that digestive system too. And we're gonna come back and talk about that when we talk about the cashews.
Well, we have a nut allergy at my house, so it's like some nuts are okay, but some aren't. So walnuts and pecans fall into that. We keep them out of the house, but hazelnuts are welcome here. So
then also in that case too, the other thing I love to do is the seeds. Yeah. So using like pumpkin seeds, right? And hemp seeds, and even like some chia seeds, so going that route can be a fun little, it adds a crunch and it still adds flavor and it still adds interest and keeps you nut free.
Cool. Do you have a preferred purveyor or brand of almond flour?
Oh, you know which one I don't, let me see if I think the name of it. I think it's just, is it Kirkland? It's the one that I find at Costco. It's in a blue bag, and Costco sells it in a nice big.
Nothing wrong with the Costco Kirkland purchases.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think, like, especially when things like that, like almond flours, as much as I like the things like the Bob's Red Mill has these, and are kind of the creator of some of these, but you get them in that small little bag and they're expensive, right? So Costco's done a really nice job with bringing in things like almond flour and hemp seeds and chia seeds and all these kind of fun superfood type flavors. Okay. That's it. I threw in just some little chopped strawberries, and we'll put a strawberry on top. I made mine really kind of small because, again, I like to have just like little hot treats that I can pop in. So I've got like this one I think is like a tablespoon, and this cookie scoop is more like about a teaspoon, but it's kind of whichever one you deem is right for you. And try a couple of each, right? These are going to be nice little baby cookies, and they just go, like I said, they just go in my freezer. And I'm kind of making it a little rounded because you kind of have to once you get the nuts and the strawberries in there. Now they're going to be delicious. All right. These are great too, like after a dinner party, and when you've had just like a big dinner and you don't want a big dessert, you just want a little something. But I think mostly the way I like them is I'm just hanging out in the afternoon and I just need a little tiny treat, right? You've been working hard all day and you just want something. You could throw little mini chocolate chips in here so you feel like you're getting your chocolate. Okay, there's my cookies. Let's set those aside. And I'm going to come in, I'm just going to give them a light little smashing down. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I want to put a little piece of strawberry on top. I've done these also where I'll take like the back of a wooden spoon and put the wooden spoon in and put a little divot in there. And then come back and fill them with like a little caramel sauce.
Oh, nice.
Which is also pretty. All right, so they're baby little cookies. So some of my strawberries are a little big. So I just like to put a little strawberry on top because it's cute. And it kind of cooks right into the cookie. Let's do a little more. And that'll finish off our cookies. And these just go in the oven for about 10 to 15 minutes, right? So these are pretty small. I'm going to put them in for about 12. Let's tell Alexa to remind me. Alexa, set a timer for 12 minutes, please, because why not? She can.
Oh my gosh, Alexa, stop.
I think she's like the most expensive kitchen timer ever.
You just set mine, so.
I know she's still talking to me. She's like, wait, what? All right. Oh my gosh, these are looking wonderful. They're just starting to right, just cook down a little bit. And that's really what we're looking for. We just want to soften them. So I need to, I keep meaning to get a camera up on the top here so you guys could look right into these guys, right?
Cool.
You know how beautiful those are looking.
Nice.
That's all we're looking for.
Like I said, it looks like spring, so.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. And we can even take some of these fennel fronds that we'll put on top.
So does the fennel still have a licorice aroma, or did that kind of
it's going to be there. It's definitely not going to just entirely dissipate. Like you're going to get a little bit of it. It's not going to be as prominent as when you had it raw. Yeah. Like it's definitely still there, even tasting it now. Okay, now I'm going to leave the cover off because I feel like we got them far enough along. Let's talk about the cashew sauce that's going on top of these. So we're going to make so typically what you could do, right, is you could take some heavy whipping cream and you can just pour right in here, little salt and pepper, and you're done, right? And that could be really easy too. But since we're doing spring, and as I mentioned, you know, spring tends to be a little bit more of that time where we're going to maybe lighten up on that dairy, right? Lighten up on some of the gluten, lighten up on some of those heavy starchy vegetables. Just again, kind of spring in our step. So we're going to go with a cashew sauce. So I've got a cup of cashews that are soaking just in some water. Now, the reason that we soak the cashews is because, as I mentioned a little bit ago, nuts can be really hard on that digestive system, right? They have this outer barrier that's called a phytic acid layer, and it's sort of their mechanism, their defensive mechanism, if you think about it that way. Because really, they're not like little animals. They're not like us. They're not like people. They can't say, get away, don't eat me, go. They don't have little arms and legs to run away. So they have this little barrier that makes it difficult to digest that exterior to try to keep us away from them. So by soaking them, what we do is we actually soften that exterior barrier. But the thing you want to do, so even if you can soak them for 20 minutes is great. 3 hours overnight is fine too. But then just make sure you rinse them afterwards, right? Get rid of that soaking liquid and then rinse them really well. And there we have it. Cashews are wonderful because they blend up to a complete creamy substance and there's no leftover little bits or pieces. Like if we did this with almonds, it'd be slightly chunky still in here, no matter how long we creamed it. But these cashews blend up super, super deliciously creamy. So we're gonna I've got about a cup of water in my blender. You can see how much I use my blender, right?
Yeah.
Any guesses on what what's coloring it the most?
I don't know. What?
If I tell you it's a golden milk that I tend to drink a lot at night, or I tend to put it a lot in my smoothies.
Turmeric? Do you make like something with turmeric?
Turmeric. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The turmeric is what has like really gotten my blender. it's gotten a using.
So funny.
Okay.
I was sharing a turmeric skincare product today on my Instagram. So
you were?
Yeah.
I gotta get on your Instagram.
Oh yeah.
What's your Instagram?
It's Duke Exploratorium.
Duke Exploratorium. I'm getting on there. Okay,
Yeah.
everyone. I'm Happy Eats Healthy. So you can see I've just started getting into the reels because you have to, because everybody's into the reels thing, right?
Oh,
This
yeah.
is what they say. You have to do the reels. So I'm just getting into it. So figuring that out. And you can also find out, like when you follow me on Instagram, you know, I also run things like retreats, yoga retreats and getaway retreats. And so if you're ever looking to get away and have some really just, you know, some healthy time of your own, you can follow that. Follow me. Join me on a retreat. Okay, I'm adding in a little Dijon mustard. A little, because I'm down to just a little, and this is the only, I usually have like 4 kinds of mustard in my house and I'm down to that little tiny little bit, so I'm not sure what happened. So I added in some garlic. Now I went 4 cloves because again, I want this to be I really want that garlic to be pungent. I want it to come through. And I'm not pre-cooking it. That sauce is going to sit in my leeks a couple of minutes. So I'm feeling like I went pretty heavy with my garlic. Try it once, right? Try it once. You can always add in a little bit more after. And then I'm going to add in again a couple pinches of that salt, because we got to get things just layering up of our salt here. Not too much, because we can always add a little bit more later. And I'm going to bring in some lemon. I'm going to get a little fork. I don't have all the fancy little lemon gadgets that everybody else has. I just use an old-fashioned fork.
Nothing wrong with that.
It works well. I know people are always like, why don't you have one of those lemon zester squeezers? I'm like, I don't need it. I also like a lot of lemon in these too. So I'm actually even putting some of the lemon middles in there, because I have a very powerful blender. Now, my blender is very powerful. If you don't have a powerful blender, you might either just need some patience and do a little bit of scraping, add a little extra liquid if you need it. Just make it yours. Here's the great thing about this kind of sauce is that it's really forgiving. You can taste it the minute you make it, and then it's going to thicken. So you could over liquefy this and let it just sit in the pan, because it'll thicken really well. Now, I have about a cup of water in here. I'm going to add a little bit of wine. You don't have to add the wine. I've made this, I usually make this without it, but I thought a little light wine in here would be lovely for the spring.
Is that like a Sauvignon Blanc, something very, very light and
very
green?
light? Yeah, yep. It's actually a Sauvignon Blanc is actually what it is. Yeah. Okay, it's going to be a little noisy, so bear with me. Let's just let me blend. That go. All right. Looking so good. It smells so good in here just from this.
Oh,
it's funny how just the simplest foods, right? The simplest foods can smell so wonderful. Now, we all know that we have to taste, right? We have to taste as we go. So I've got this pretty liquidy. Like, so look at this. This isn't too thick right now, because again, when we do a cashew sauce like this, it'll thicken really quick in your pan, and you almost have to be very careful because it can actually over thicken and get real gloopy. So there's kind of a real point here. So we've got that garlic coming through. There's a little bit of astringent from that lemon and even the wine, right? So I've got a little bit of that all happening. It's lovely. So we're just going to pour this in. Oh, nice and creamy. Oh my gosh, this looks good. And I'm going to let that just simmer together. So the goal here is, right, just encompassing these leeks, these fennel, and let that just simmer. I've actually probably got too much. I'm going to let it. I'm just going to go with it. Put it in. Is it ever?
Yeah,
can you ever have too much creamy?
Yeah.
I can't have too much creamy. All right. So really, all I need to do at this stage is just let that warm. I'm just letting the sauce itself warm, but do keep an eye on it, because as I said, you'll be surprised at how fast a cashew sauce will thicken and then get kind of glumpy on you. So just keep a little eye on it. Keep it on just a nice little low, and stir it a couple times, and then just slow it down and take it off the heat, and then you're good to go. Now, I think our cookies should be almost ready to come out. So I'm going to give myself a little room here. What else have I not said about spring? I had a couple notes. I just want to make sure I said everything that I wanted to talk about with spring. As I mentioned, like the food that comes out in spring, I think I said is good for cleansing the blood and the liver. But you think about things like where people have a lot of hay fever and allergies in the spring. Well, spring food is really meant to sort of clear that congestion. It's meant to help pore circulation. It's meant to help support like bile flow and that type of thing. So if you find that you're really struggling with some of these kinds of congested symptoms, think about what kind of diet you're eating. Maybe think about taking the dairy out. Just try it. Try it for 5 days. Try it for 7 days. See what happens. See how you feel. Add in things that are more on that bitter astringent, like a burdock root, or like even dandelion greens, or what am I thinking of? Oh, arugula, right? Simply arugula. Arugula is going to give you that same thing as well, right? So anything along those lines. So this is lovely. Oh my gosh, this is smelling so good. It's so creamy. So I'm actually turning it down just a smidge because I can find my hot spots are starting to get just a little bit thick on those hot spots. But
so I wanted to ask, because I totally want to make this, but like I mentioned, we have a nut allergy and cashews are on our no list.
Yeah.
Would I be able to maybe like substitute like tahini instead and do like tahini, lemon, Sauvignon Blanc, garlic, that kind of a sauce? Would that go well with this, you think?
Yes, I have a couple different ideas for you. I think tahini would be wonderful. I have my pepper grinder because I need some pepper in here. I think tahini would be wonderful. I would also say try sunflower seeds. If you don't have an aversion to sunflower seeds work really well, just like the cashews. They have a little, I think creamy deserves a lot of pepper, so I got my big pepper grinder on. They have, they carry a little more of a forward flavor than a cashew does. But I think that could work. I also think, have you ever used or played with hemp seeds?
Alexa, stop.
Alexa, stop. I know, mine just did the same thing. Hemp seeds are another one that you could use that will also create a creamy essence to it. Have you seen those before?
I have not, but I know my husband does every day he goes to work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I have a little jar of them I keep in the fridge, and they're just like these little nutty seeds, but they're softer than a seed, and they're not a nut. So that's another, and they have great protein to them too, which is also really lovely. Awesome. So that's another idea. The other thing is to don't be afraid to do a pumpkin seed, or instead of the tahini, just do a
like with the pepitas and
the pepitas, and even sesame seeds, right? You're instead of the tahini, just do a scoop of the sesame seeds in the blender.
Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Oh my gosh, these look so adorable. And they smell so good. Okay, so look at our cookies here.
Oh, those are super cute.
I don't want them to fall. There we go. So there is our little strawberry cookie. I'm going to turn off my oven just so I don't forget to turn that off, because I have a habit of leaving that on. Okay, now with any kind of cookie that's going to be like on that gluten-free edge. So this is gluten-free because we only used the almond flour. You just want to let them cool. They will fall apart a little bit easier when you pick them up. So really letting them cool is kind of just the most important thing. Let them just be for a few minutes and let them just kind of settle back into where they are. But it's a really simple little cookie that doesn't have any of the dairy in it. Now, that said, I oftentimes will change out that coconut oil for ghee and use the ghee in there. So if you want just a little bit more of that essence of dairy flavor in there, or for some reason you can't eat the coconut oil, you could do ghee. I do that all the time too. So that's a nice little switch. And I used maple syrup, but you could use a honey. You could do a coconut sugar as well. And if you did a coconut sugar, you're probably just going to need to add just a pinch of a smattering of a milk or a dairy milk, or even water. I made a batch of these last week where I actually used just a little bit of water in there because they were dry and I was using a gluten-free flour.
Could you use agave syrup?
Sure, absolutely. You can 100% use agave syrup. Now, here's the one thing about agave. See, I just want to say I'm turning off my cream now, because you can kind of hear I'm almost scraping a little bit off that bottom. It's getting a little bit stuck on there. And this is the stage where if I left this on the heat, it would probably get a little glumpy. And so I am going to just take that off and set that on my, keep the creaminess of it, right? Because look at this creaminess. I mean, this just looks exactly like it was made with something in a dairy type of piece. So great, nice, easy, simple. Agave, real true agave is lower on that glycemic index, so it's a nice thing to use for a sweetener. But most of the agave that we're buying here just on our shelves, really that agave is a little bit of a misnomer. It's a little high on that glycemic index. So just meaning like it has a high sugar load on your body. So once in a while, right? Everything within balance. Once in a while, we just don't want to eat it every day. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I would do the creamy leeks. Is probably wouldn't just have a bowl of creamy leeks. Well, I would. Yeah. I would eat a bowl of creamy leeks. But this is awesome to have next to a broiled fish, next to a grilled chicken, something along those lines. I think that'd just be really lovely alongside of that. And then you've got your little cookies, and the cookies that you don't finish eating. Remember, just take these, and then once they cool, just keep them in the freezer. And my freezer cookies are like, they're amazing, like right out of the oven when they cool. But I really like them out of the freezer. They're like my little frozen freezer bites that I don't even let them like thaw. I just kind of pop them in. They're fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah. So that's it. I guess the thing I want to leave you with is, really think seasonally, and the best way to understand the seasonal foods in your area is really to go to farmers markets, because if you go to the grocery store, you can get anything at the grocery store. But looking at the farmers markets or signing up for those CSAs, or maybe you don't even want to buy from a CSA or buy from the farmers market, because I do hear there's a challenge sometimes with the cost of it. Maybe just going every once in a while to see what the farmers are bringing, and then buy that from the grocery store, right, where it's more reasonable for you. So make things work for you, or go to a place like a Costco or a Sam's Club where you feel like your money goes a little bit further. Make it work for you, but just get an idea. If you need an idea of what's growing in your region, one of the best ways to do it is just to see what the farmers are bringing to the market, because that's, they're pulling that right out of the ground. So there's real benefit to them.
Yeah, and if you're going to the farmers market too, I mean, the farmers are your best resource for not only knowing what's coming into season, what's great to be getting right now, but they're so excited to give you recommendations on how to prepare the items as well. They love cooking their own product, and sometimes they come up with some really great ideas and recipes that you might not have thought of.
It's important. I'm so glad you said that, because I think there is this piece of like, I can't talk to the farmers, they're busy, right? They want to talk about their produce. They want to talk about how things grow. They want to talk about, ask them about the organic versus pesticide controls, because a lot of farmers, the cost of being organic is astronomical, and most people, small farmers, can't afford it, but they're maybe the next best step down without being certified organic. And talk to them about how they control pests using pheromones out in the trees versus spraying the crops. I think you'll learn a lot of interesting aspects if you just sort of if you have to get over that shyness and just be like, yeah, hi, I have some questions about this, and I was hoping you can help me out. They love to have these conversations.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're such a great untapped resource.
Right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I hope this is helpful, and I hope you guys find some spring foods in your neck of the woods, and that help you find your way to just a little bit of a lighter spring.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Monique. This was amazing.
You're welcome.
If you get me these recipes, I'm going to share them out with the group and everything.
I will.
I know I'm looking to make that leek dish, definitely. Roy, do you have questions before we wrap it up, or are you all good?
All good, I think now, unless you want to include some of your places where you prefer to get, if you have other places in addition to Costco, any local, real nice brands and places you have found. And Costco is like everywhere, and they can aggregate things. But if you found any nice little shops, that'd be great to know too.
Yeah, you know what? That's a really good question. My favorite little hidden shop, not hidden, everyone knew about it. My favorite shop that closed, I think it was during COVID, was Stanley's. Did you guys ever know Stanley's?
Yeah, that was
on
that.
Elston.
I think they closed before COVID though.
Yeah, I think they did.
That
I
was
think
a
it was
sad
right before
day
COVID.
when Stanley shuttered. So
That was a sad day because it was, and I understand people struggled because it was like food you had to use today or tomorrow, but
yeah.
that was my favorite way. And that's on Western. There's another place, or excuse me, on Elston. And if you keep going north on Elston, there's another place just past Fullerton that I've now gone to instead. And I can't quite come up with I'm blanking on the name of it. So that I've had really good luck with that place.
Fresh Time.
Yes, Fresh Time. Yes, thank you. Fresh Time has been wonderful.
And Time like THYME.
THYME. Yeah, Fresh Time has been nice. There's a brand new grocery store that opened up right next to me, it's right over there, which I'm so excited about, called Urban Market. It's on Chicago Avenue and Milwaukee. So if you're in that little downtown west town region, that just opened up, and they have some really great produce, but they also have really lovely ethnic aisles that I'm excited about. Those are probably my hits. I definitely have my very specific things that I go to Whole Foods for, that I load up on my bulk nuts and seeds because their bulk items are fabulous. So there's certainly, like, when I'm at Whole Foods, there's my checkoff list for all those bulk items. And when I'm at Fresh Time, that's my veggie market, and Costco has become a lot of those dry goods. So a little bit of everything everywhere.
And I'll let you know, my husband, who is culinarily trained, on the north side, he likes to shop at Fresh Farms. There's a couple of those. It's very European marketplace, but lots of produce, lots of fish. And he also loves H Mart, of course.
Oh, so. H Mart. Love H Mart. Yeah. H Mart. And if you go to the one in Niles, they have the food around the outside that is just really lovely. Yeah. Yeah, I love H Mart. I don't have a car, so it's hard for me to get there. But now that there's the little H Mart in downtown, I'm like
down the south side. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I go to H Mart, like, I will never walk out of an H Mart without a lotus root. I love slicing those and making chips out of those. It's my favorite thing.
There's a couple of places. Hinsdale, right in their downtown area, has a great farmers market through the summer. The season hasn't started yet for them, but I think from May to August on certain Saturdays, and it's a number of purveyors coming down from Wisconsin as well, bringing different kinds of products. And then there's another. You say the ethnic some of the neighborhoods, Berwyn Fruit Market. I've been able to get a lot of spices. It's on Harlem near Ogden, and a lot of spices I can't find. I get there. They just have loads of great spices for various things.
Good to know. I'm always looking for great spice shops. I have a lovely one that opened up right down the street from me, and they supply a lot of the restaurants, but it's not the same as if you're used to a spice shop where you walk in and everything is laid out and it's this big spice. It's not that kind of spice shop. This one's called Epic, but they have everything in the back. You're just gonna have to ask them for it.
And we still need to explore the big Patel brothers that opened up northwest.
Oh,
so that
is that on
it's like it's up by like Gulf Mill.
Okay. I was thinking Devon, but that's not it. That's not the one.
No, it's even further.
Okay. Yeah. That's a trip for me. Anybody wants to pick me up and go shopping, I'm happy. I'm happy to go with you. I love it. All
right. Well, thank you so much again, Monique. This was a pleasure, and we will have more things coming. We need to discuss some more things we want to plan for the future, and definitely I hope that everyone is going to be getting some great spring produce and enjoying it. And let us know what you guys are eating too. Share with us. We would love to find out. So
please do.
Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic
Bye, Christine.
weekend.
Bye, Rory.
Bye.
Thank you.